Hey guys, this is a tutorial on how to use the RoKarts map plugin, the improved version. So I've already got a nice level here, and I'm going to demonstrate using this. And the first thing that we have to do, so this is our start page. We have three options: base map import, prop import, and configure map. So base map import is what we're going to do. And in this step, what happens is you go to your game explorer and you're going to import meshes. And these meshes are the visuals for this map. So everything that you see on this screen right here. Actually, I'll put this away so that we can start fresh. And I already have these meshes in. Wait, first let me show you what these meshes look like usually if I just imported them. Yeah. So if I do this import, you're going to notice that all of these meshes are mesh parts. And the scaling is going to be different. But this is not what we're going to do. What we have to do is we need to be inside of the plugin, inside of base map import. And on this specific page, import visual meshes, only then can we insert all of these meshes with insert with location. And when we do that, you might have noticed that there was some movement in the files, because what actually happened was all of the mesh parts were converted to special meshes, and they were also transformed a little bit so that it's all correct. Okay, so anyways, this isn't really part of the tutorial, but just so that the map looks nice, I'm going to quickly configure this water plane, because yeah, it's just a gray slate right now. I'm gonna grab, where is it? Okay, I'm gonna grab this color, and it's 0.5. Alright, so this looks nice. Oh, and also turn off cast shadows. Okay, anyways. So any mesh that you import during this page is going to be automatically scaled and recognized by the plugin. So all of these parts, even though they're separate parts, actually the plugin sees them as one thing right now. And what we can do is we can type in any scale that we want, and the plugin automatically rescales. So you can only, I guess the theme with this plugin is don't do anything manually unless I say you can. So don't rescale these meshes by yourself. Instead, you should be using this only. And there's this neat feature where you can enable a scale reference, which just shows a 2-scale model of the standard cart, so you can compare it. And okay, so the scaling in these maps, you generally want the cart to look pretty small. So this is too big, or the cart is too big. So I'm going to scale the map up, and I already decided the value. I think 20 is good. So let me just quickly show you what it looks like. Oh yeah, and also for your own convenience, you can even, oops, that was the value. You can move the distance of the scale model. So yeah, I did think a lot about user experience. I don't know if this will ever be a community plugin. Maybe eventually it'll be a community plugin, but even if it's just for like 1 or 2 people in my team, you know, it's good to have this stuff. Okay, another thing is for this base map, it actually doesn't really matter. By base map, I mean like the general terrain. But you can select the primary part of whatever this becomes. So I could set this to like this beach rock. It doesn't matter for this, but for making props, you're going to probably want to set the primary part, especially if you plan on animating it, which is the thing that you can do, by the way. Okay, anyways. So on almost every slide, there's like a little bit of text that you can read. Just reminds you certain things you shouldn't do. It's gonna be similar to what I say here. Anyways, now we go to the next slide. This is import obj files. So you might be thinking, I've already imported the visual map, these meshes. What is this? These are specifically the collisions that the game interacts with, and these you should make as low poly as possible. So for this map, we have a lot of these nice rocks, but we don't really care about all of this detail, and it actually is kind of confusing to the collision system to have all of this stuff, like these crevices. So usually we want to make our collision meshes different. Taking a little bit to load. Okay, so I'm gonna just quickly open up the file that for this map. Let's see what it looks like rendered. Okay, that's slow. Okay, so this is the visuals. This is usually what you would start with, right? And then these are the collisions. So you'll notice that for all these rocks, instead they're now just these plain walls. And this is what works best for the gameplay. It's very smooth. And also another thing to note is you want to separate these into different meshes and export these as separate OBJ files. This distinction allows you to assign different attributes and face types to different parts of the mesh. So this is the off-road, and this would be the wall over here. Anyways, so I already have the files exported, and it's a good advice to nicely sort these into good folders. So I have under RoKarts, I have my beach map, I have my textures, oops, the models, and within the model is the base map, the visual meshes that I already have in the Game Explorer, and the collision meshes. So let's click the ground mesh. And a nice thing about this is that it looks at the file name, and if it sees a match between the file name and any of these geometry types, then it's going to click that automatically. So it does like a search function. So if it's ground or ground 1 or ground 2, then it'll pick ground. But if it's something else, then it's not going to pick ground. Okay, so I'll quickly go over these different geometry types. Ground is anything that the wheels drive on. Ground wall, actually I'll get to that later. Wall is anything that your cart bumps against, and also projectiles bump against it and whatever. Yeah, but you can't drive on walls, obviously. Zipper is it's like an invisible vertical plane, a vertical wall that your cart drives up against, and This is for the half pipe sections where it's like BMX stunts. You're going up over there and then turning and stuff. This might change actually. I don't know yet. Anyways, trigger is basically when you intersect the trigger triangle, or sorry, when you intersect a trigger mesh, different things can happen. So actually I'll hold off on that. And we have zone, I'll explain that later. Anyways, this is going to be a ground, right? And I call this ground, but it's really talking about the parts that are the road. So it's going to be full speed. And we don't add any attributes for this one, but we can if we wanted to. And now we see this here. And if you click on this tag, it disappears. So you can just delete whenever you want. And let's just import that again. Now we're going to import this other thing called off-road. And this off-road is talking about these areas, and this should also be ground because you can drive on it. But we want this to be acting like an off-road. So I'm going to select the as off-road attribute, select the value of true, and add that. So now the code knows that this is off-road. And we have another attribute we can also add, off-road power. So maybe in certain maps you might want certain off-road areas that are slower than others. Like maybe you're having a swamp map and you can be driving on dirt, which is slightly slow, and a mud area that is super slow. So you could change this. These attributes they can change, or well, they might change depending on what we decide to add as features. So I might edit this video or like leave a note somewhere to a document that explains new attributes. But anyways, that's not really important. So we're gonna we'll add this as well and add that. Trigger. Okay, so I said trigger is something that can activate something. So one trigger type that is going to be very common is out of bounds. So out of bounds meaning when you enter this mesh, your cart is going to be respawned. So like certain areas you might not want the player to go to, so you can respawn them once they reach there. Or if they fall below a certain height, maybe you want them to respawn. Like if they fall into an ocean. And I have one other example trigger. This is a cannon. So the cannon is like the thing that shoots you across in the air in Mario Kart. And when you drive into the trigger region for the cannon, that's when the code activates for the cannon function, which will shoot you. So yeah, it's not programmed yet, but it will be eventually. So I just included it. Anyways, let's continue. And wall. And there's nothing that we want to add here. Okay. Oh yeah, let me explain ground wall. So ground wall is basically saying it can be either ground or wall depending on the angle of the road to the sky. So this, you do not want to use this normally. Don't be lazy and just use this for everything. Because even though it will technically work, it's going to be really bad on performance because there's extra math that needs to be done for this. But the reason why this is here is because we're going to get into props later, but you can have certain rotating platforms where one face might be facing up and acting like a ground in 1 second, and then maybe the platform rotates and then suddenly it's a wall. So like if you had a spinning tube that you could drive inside of, then certain faces will be constantly changing from ground to wall and back to ground. Anyways, we're gonna set this to wall. Oh, and I should also demonstrate some things. So these are fields where you can only type a number. These are true or false. And something pretty cool is you can also have certain attributes that are vectors. So basically a three-dimensional direction. And this nice arrow indicator shows which direction that is. And you can change it by using the default rotate tool, which is really neat. So this is going to be used for if we have like water currents that you could drive on that pull you in certain directions, or conveyor belts. This will be definitely used for that. Anyways, we don't care about any of this because this is just the normal wall. So we're gonna add that. And if you'll notice that the process button is grayed out, we need to also give it a name. So we're going to call it map. I'll call it beach map 2 just to distinguish it from this other beach map that I was working on. And this process button, once you click it, there's going to be some complicated math that runs to import all of this geometry and sort it and do all kinds of processing. So this is going to take a little bit, and maybe if your computer is slower, then it's going to take longer. So you can see the numbers going here. The larger your map is, the more you're going to have to wait here, by the way. So just be aware. Ooh, my battery is running low. Okay, so now the process is done, and you'll see that our folder, we've generated a proper map file or map folder, and we're going to keep this. Don't delete any of this, like these things. These are all important, so don't touch. And inside here, we'll see that it generated our geometry. So you could click on one of these files to see the crazy numbers. But again, don't touch this stuff, obviously. And we also have a little configuration thing. This stuff is all for the plugin and the code itself, so don't touch. And we have also the actual model. And this, you can actually make changes to. So the collision stuff isn't going to be in any here. So if you like move this rock around, then the collisions will no longer line up with it. But I mean, you can still move. Oh shoot. You can still move stuff, but just be careful. Ooh, that's not good. Really, I can't undo that. Okay, I think I'm gonna re-import because I messed it up. But this will be a good demonstration of how fast this import is. Just insert with location 20, next, ground, off-road, and off-road thing. Trigger, want this to be the trigger type of out of bounds, and wall. Beach map 2. Okay, so you can see that took like absolutely no time. So it should be very comfortable and very quick to do once you get used to it. All right, so now we're going to go into prop importing. And prop import is going to follow the same steps as the base map import. So props are these like different details that you want to place around the map and have many copies of. And the important thing about props is that you can actually script or animate these props so that they move around, and the collision mesh for this will follow it. So you can have moving platforms with props, basically. I think I set this to 8. Yeah. Actually, wait, let me check what I had. Yeah, I had 8. Okay. So I'm gonna go. And here's a new step, adjust prop anchor point. So this circle here marks where the anchor point is. And we can move the prop around relative to that point. And this anchor point basically indicates where the prop will be touching the ground once you place it. So right now this means that this point is going to be where the ground is. And if we had the prop up here, then that means the tree is floating. If we had it down here, it'd be sunk into the ground. And we could even rotate around this point too. So maybe I want to give the tree a little tilt just by default. Then we could do that. Just make sure it's centered. Okay. And then we do the same import thing. And I'll call this palm tree. Okay, see, that was very fast because it's a small mesh. And here's something else you have to do. Now that we have our palm tree file, we want to put this drag it into the props folder of our base map or our total map file. And you'll see that this is what allows us to mess with that later. So now we're going to click configure map, and we have to first select the map file. And it has to import the map file, so it does some stuff. And so this step is transfer data. What this does is it allows us to grab information from another map file. So I could demonstrate it with this other map file I have. And you can even choose which properties you want or you don't want. So let's say I just want the item boxes from this other map. So I'll click overwrite. And now we have all of the item boxes from that other map. And we can see that if we go to this slide. So yeah, these are the item boxes. But let me just delete all of these because we don't actually want them. And a good thing to note about this transfer data thing is that the data you transfer is going to be automatically rescaled to this new map. So this is mainly useful for if you import a map at, say, size 10, and then you place all of your props and item boxes and whatever. But then you realize after playtesting it that, hey, this map is too small. Then what you can do is re-import the map, make it size 20, and transfer over all of the information. And all of the props and everything is going to be repositioned to adjust for that scale. So it'll look perfectly fine and correct, even though the scale is different, which is very, very useful. Okay, so the first thing is place props. This table is going to be reflecting whatever is inside here. So if you move this out, it's gone. Now it's back. We click here, Ooh. Okay, there's it seems like I introduced a bug before I was um okay, that's not good. Let me quickly fix this bug in real time. This is very easy. I actually know where the bug is. Line 1382. You can finally see what it's like to be me. Let me just delete that. Alright, fixed. Okay, so this won't interrupt anything. Let's just reopen the plugin. Have to go back and click configure file and select that. Okay, so back to business. We click here. Now we can place the props wherever we want. So you can also disable and enable the placement cursor. And you can return to selection as well. And once you... Oh no, not again. Okay, this is bad. Why are these new bugs popping up? What did I change? Oh. Okay, so I had to cut there because I ran into a big, or not a big bug, but a bug that was kind of annoying. Turns out I had introduced the bug after I verified that something worked, and I didn't bother checking again, and that was a big mistake. Anyways, back to where we were. So we click on the prop that we want to place, and we click to place. We can disable and enable a cursor, and once we have placed, we can actually move this prop around however we want. It really doesn't matter how you move it. This thing is just convenient because it places the props to the ground according to the prop anchor you specify, but it doesn't mean you have to place it this way. You could actually just move it around like this, and it's perfectly fine. But one thing to note is once you select these tools, the plugin cursor gets kind of bugged. So in order to start placing again, you have to toggle this. And then once you do that, you can start placing again. So I'm just gonna place some trees around. Actually, no. This is gonna take too much time, so what I will do instead is transfer over some very nice placements that I've done on this other map, which is identical to this one. So let me disable everything else because we don't want that yet. And we just do this. And one thing to note is when you do a transfer of the prop files like that, it doesn't affect just the placements of these props, but also the actual prop itself, like this base geometry. So just keep that in mind. It's going to overwrite that data. So make sure that nothing is important. Nothing important is about to be overwritten that you don't have elsewhere. Okay, I should probably also take a little moment to mention something else. So say you wanted to change the size of all of these trees, right? So what would you do in that case? Well, we would go back to prop import, and then we would import a prop, right? And oh, it's this small one, not that one. And let's say we wanted to make the tree bigger. So we say 12 instead of 8, right? And we also set our prop anchor point. There. Okay, so now that we have our prop, how do we go about replacing all of the trees that we've placed with this new version of the tree? Obviously, you don't want to go through, delete each one and replace each one because that would take ages, right? So there is actually a way to do this. All right, now we have our palm tree big, and let's go back into configure map because that's where we need to be. So on this place props page, this is the only page that we can do this, by the way. So one special thing about these props is that they all have a unique ID. And one thing that, one behavior, I should say, is that when you replace one prop with another, it checks if the ID is the same. Okay, I'm explaining this really badly. Let me say that again. Okay, so we have a unique ID for each prop, and if you insert a prop into this props folder that has the same ID as another prop in the props folder, then that other prop gets replaced with this one. So this is the only way that the system knows that you're trying to replace a prop. So if we want to replace these trees with the big ones, what we do is we copy this ID, we paste it into this one, and now when we drag this into here, you see everything got replaced with the bigger tree. Do we want a bigger tree though? I kind of felt like the old size was okay. Yeah, actually I don't want that, so we can just Control Z that. I made sure that you can undo a majority of the actions. If there's ones that you can't undo, I'll make sure to make note of it. So anyways, let's delete that because we don't actually want it. All right, now we're going to go into placing item boxes. So item boxes are these nice blue cubes. And what's interesting about item boxes is that you want them to come in large rows. So you want to have like 6 in a row or something. And I don't really understand the game design behind this specifically. I assume it's so that you can sort of mentally understand when you're about to hit the next set of item boxes. And when you do, you don't have to like turn to hit it. Like you'll just get it by going straight into the row. But anyways, Mario Kart does the item box rows, and I think whatever Nintendo does is probably right, so I'm doing that too. So anyways, back to this. How do we make that row? So the first thing you do is you click the center of what the row is going to be. So let's say we want the item boxes to be earned right here. Yeah, this is a good spot. So we click the center, and once we click, oh, yeah, so I need to toggle the placement cursor there because it was being, oh come on, is this also broken? Man, what the heck? Okay, I guess I need to code again. When I release the plugin, I promised none of this would be happening. Okay, I'm gonna just cut. Okay, we're back. So anyways, to set a row of item boxes, you click on the center where you want the row to start, and then you want to drag towards the end of the row. So you define the middle and one of the ends. And you see that we have a nice row of item boxes. And the interesting thing is that when you're going over a slope, the item boxes will try to find the ground if it's close enough. So you can do something like this. And actually, your results may vary. Like over here, you can see that this slope is pretty harsh, so it's not able to figure out the item boxes is in this area. So it's kind of having some trouble. Um, yeah, I might tweak that actually. By the time I release this, I'll probably have it improved a bit. Anyway, so we can do that. And another thing we can do is we can change how many studs each item box is separated by. So by default, it's at 8. If we wanted to do something big like 20, we can do that. Or you could make it like 1 and then it's gonna be something crazy. Yeah, but we generally don't want that. So let's just reset it to sets it back to the default, which is 8. And another thing is a single mode. Now you can place single item boxes. So let's set down a couple over here, for example. And let's go set a couple more rows. So maybe we want one over here. And then we want a bunch over here. Yep. And maybe you want a few over here. And so on. So you can just really easily place a bunch of these all over the place. And like with the plot, oh my gosh, like with the props, you could disable the placement cursor and then move these around like this. Ooh, I didn't actually know that happens. That's weird. Okay, well anyways. Yeah, I guess I might want to change that. Fix it. It's minor enough that it doesn't really matter. But anyways, you can move these around like that. And next, we have placing coins, which is broken apparently. Okay. Oh wait, no, it was not broken. So that was the glitch I was talking about earlier. Sometimes if you work with these, or any plugin actually, if we select a plugin, these are technically plugins by the way. If you select some other tool, like the move tool, then this plugin loses focus of the cursor. And so to regain it, you have to toggle this placement cursor. And now we can place the coins all over the place. And generally you want to put them in like groups of 3 and in this kind of formation so that the player can't always get all 3, but they could get like 2 if they plan out their path well. And you can use coins to indicate to the player different choices they have. Like if you want to make a certain path more rewarding, you could add some coins because coins increase top speed. Okay, anyways, that was straightforward. Oh, and another thing I should show, or yeah, is that, okay, wait, let me add some item boxes here. So when you switch between these different pages, it highlights only the thing that it's editing. So when I'm in the coins mode, it shows coins. When I'm in item mode, it shows items. And let's place down some track nodes now. So track nodes are what defines the course, like the specific path you have to take. I wrote about it here, but it's used for like the AI, and it's also used for determining what place you're in. And there is a lot of things about this. I'll try to cover as much as possible. Okay, so we start off with the first node, which is going to be at our starting line. And I don't have the actual starting line modeled here, but I would expect it to go here. So it's going to start off with number 1. And let's quickly go over what all of these are. So down here we have our information, and we also have placement settings. And this is the default placements, the default settings for new nodes that you place. And right now we only have one of these, but this might expand to more later on. So you see track width. So at each node, you can define the width of the road at that point. And this blue circle, it just shows you the width. It's visual representation. And so you can set the default value for that to like 20. And now every single node we place is going to have this value of 20, which is really small, by the way. Let me just delete these because we don't want that. And I'm going to reset this back to default, which is at 88, because 88 is the width of this starting grid, which I'll show later. Anyways, so we have the track width, and you can also change the track width per node over here. So we could set it to like 20, or we could reset it back to whatever this default is. Needs boost. Okay, I'll cover that later. We have the delete button, which I demonstrated. We have a reposition button, or we can reposition this node, which doesn't seem very useful right now, but it's actually quite useful once you have a lot of nodes. And you want to be able to snap it to the ground like you can here. And the last thing in this panel is node stage. So in a track, there's basically 3 stages. Stages 0, 1, and 2. Stage 0 is always the start line, the node that is indicating the start line. So this is our start line. So we set it to 0. And it says that here as well. And there's 2 other stages, as I mentioned, stage 1 and stage 2. And these are key checkpoints, which are basically areas that you must pass in order for a lap to count. And actually it goes in order of 0, 1, 2, back to 0. So if you drove backwards, go from stage 0 to stage 2, and stage 1 is back to stage 0, then that does not count on lap. You have to drive forward from stage 0 to 1 to 2 to 0. And that's how we know whether you're actually driving a full lap or not. Okay. And by default, the stage value for these nodes is -1, which just indicates that it's not important, or it's not a key checkpoint or the start line. Let's continue. So we're going to start placing our nodes. Let's node number 2, number 3, and maybe at this point I decide, now that this path is wide enough, I want to increase the width by some amount. Okay, it doesn't reflect this one, so we should change this as well. 110. And then we say, oh look, the width is actually clipping into the wall a little bit. So let me reposition this node a bit. And that's better. You could see the difference in node size. And the last thing is these next nodes. So the way that this whole thing works is that each node has information telling the code which other nodes it points to. So normally one node just points to another node, and there's no other. It's just 101 basically. And when you're placing down these nodes, you notice that there's these numbers 1, 2, and 3. It's going to just keep increasing one by one. And if I place down this node over here, it's going to be labeled 4. And by default, it's going to look at that number, subtract 1, so it's 3. And the node 3 is going to point to that new node 4. So we can see that here. Node 3 points to node 4. And if I play node 5, node 4 will point at node 5. And this is just convenient so that you don't have to manually set these all the time. But there are times that you do want to manually change this, which I'll show in a moment. Okay, so we can also see that our track width, the default that we set, is being applied correctly. It's good. Let me reposition that. Okay, so here's one example of where we could have a branching path. You could either drive over this way, maybe we'll put some item boxes here, or over here. And the player can actually drive anywhere here. It could drive over here or over here. But this is mainly useful for the AI. So the AI, we want to direct them to these two paths, which are the best paths. So we're gonna start off with one of the paths. So let me start over here. We're gonna want to decrease the width to something smaller. And since it's a tight path, I'm gonna make it even smaller at this point. So the AI should want to stick between these two areas. This region, which is very tight. Set that to the width. Okay, we can start increasing the width over here. 40 and set it to 80. Okay, cool. And now we want to add our second branching path. And you might say, but wait, we've already got nodes 6 through 12. So if we want to make another path that starts off at 5, then how can we do that? We wouldn't have the numbers, right? And to answer that, no, we don't do duplicate numbers. These numbers are all unique. But what we can do is start placing down. So as you might have expected, this new node is node 13, which means that node 12 is actually pointing to it, which we don't want. So we can click here to delete that connection. And all we have to do is go click to number 5, click add new node, and then click 13. So now node 5 points to both 6 and 13. And even though there's this jump in numbers, it actually technically doesn't matter. The numbers are just there to help you. And if we place node 14, then this old trick works again. And actually for this path, we want the width to be a lot larger. Let me set it to 80. Let me just delete that and replace it. Okay. And now, since we want to merge these two paths again, so we're gonna manually set the next node to 12 from here. And now we're back to a converging path, or singular path, I mean. So if I place down another node, there's that jump again. So this is not going to be connected. It's going to be pointed to by 16. So make sure to always check and delete this. And now in 12, we want to point to 17. And so every time you make these split paths, you're going to have to do some manual work with adjusting which nodes point to where. But it's not a lot of work, and it's pretty smooth with this plugin, so it should be okay. And actually, I want to increase the default width back to 100. And I'm going to start plotting a lot more. This stuff we can go a little faster. Okay, so now we're coming up to another branching path. Let me just place that. And we want to, actually let me reposition this over here. We want to mark out this path along the coast and one that goes through the water. So this time let's start with going through the water, the straight path. And probably want that width to be like maybe 60. Let's see, is 60 good? Yep. We'll just place these. Huh, that's weird. Oh, right, I forgot to change the water back. Let me quickly do that. So I had to re-import this base map because I messed up the other one. And then I forgot to redo the water. Man, my voice is really dry right now. One sec. Grab this. Okay, cool. I was wondering why it looked ugly, then I realized. So we're just gonna continue. Gonna increase the width at this point to 80. Actually, probably. Actually, it's okay. Keep going. Keep going. And over here. Let's make that 100. Or maybe a little wider than usual. 120. Alright, so since this is just a straight path with every number counting up as you would expect, all of these connections are good. And okay, let's look at this other path now. We're going to create another node here. For this one, we probably want it to be like 90. Or no, let's do 100. 100. Alright. So let's set the path. Yep. I always get happy looking at these pointing arrows. These effects always make me very happy. And continue. 33. So this will point there. Yep. 34. 35. I might have some boost panels or something over here. Oh wait. Over here. I'm kind of worried that the AI is going to drive into this tree. I'll see if I can figure that out. Alright. So we're getting close again. And let's add a node, point it there. And now we're going to add a new node, which will be pointed to by 41. We don't want that, so we delete that. And we manually set this node. Oh, I also forgot this one apparently. Delete that. And set here. Okay, good. Okay, before I get too far with that, I also want to demonstrate, or not really demonstrate, but let me explain. So one of the values here is needs boost, and I didn't explain what it was specifically, but this is a good example. So here we have two branching paths, and for this map, I know that both paths are going to be fine to drive on without a boost. Like it'll be a full road instead of off-road. But let's say that we wanted to make this path off-road, so it's going to be slow if you don't have a boost. So what we want to do is for the first node that starts this path, so this node 23 is the last node before the branch starts, right? And there's two branches. This first branch starts off at 32. This other branch starts off at 24. So what we want to do is for the starting node of the branch, we want to enable needs boost. And this will tell the AI. So when the AI reaches node 23, it's going to look at its options. It has two options, 24 and 32. And it sees that node 32 doesn't need a boost. Node 24 does need a boost. I did say that right, 32 and 24. And so it's going to run some calculations and say, okay, I have a boost. Let's go to node 24 because it needs a boost and I have one. Or it says, I don't have a boost, so let me go to 32. So that's basically what this is for. And just keep in mind that you only need to enable it for this first one. All right, let's continue. Oh, okay, there seems to be a bug. It seems to be a common theme today. Yeah, I forgot to make it so the visual updates for this check mark. So I only checked off needs boost for this one, but now it seems like all of these have need boost enabled now, which is not the case. Anyways, okay, let's just continue. Oops. I'm just going to quickly mark out the rest of the map, sort of crudely, because I don't really care about making it good, because I can always go and fix things later. I think we'll swap back to 80 around here. Yeah. Oh, there's also something else I need to demonstrate. Let me go back to the start. So sometimes you may have a lot of nodes in one spot, or maybe you have a node that you don't like and you want to get rid of it. So let's say we wanted to get rid of node, what's a good one? Say we wanted to get rid of, shoot. I want to find one that's a good example. All right, node 20. We're getting rid of node 20. Behind it is node 19. In front of it's node 21. How do we get rid of it? What you should not do is go through the explorer and press delete. That is a big no-no, because then this whole thing is corrupted and it's all broken. So do not do that. In fact, for this step, for this placing track nodes, don't even look at the explorer. Have it closed, honestly. This should be closed. So what we want to do is click on the node and press this delete button, right? And you'll see that node 19 was before it, and what was node 21 became node 20. And every single node that came after this has been correctly adjusted. So now everything is basically -1. Yeah. And another thing is, what if you wanted to insert a node in between two other nodes? So let's say you wanted to insert a node here between 19 and 20. Well, you would click a node here, right? But this is node 47 and you don't really want that. So what we can do is this first number field, it changes what this number is. So we're going to set it to node 20. And now everything after 20 is adjusted. 21, 22, 23. But something to note is that when we place this node, it was node 47, which means that node 46 is actually pointing to it right now. We can come here. Okay, node 46 became node 47, but anyways. So you can see it's pointing to node 20. So make sure you go and delete that always. You're gonna have to make sure, you have to be vigilant with this, because if you're not vigilant, things can happen. Okay. And another thing you have to do is node 20 was actually node 47. So node 19 was not configured to point to it, and node 47 was not configured to point to node 21, right? So we have to manually set that, which is fine. Okay, and just for another example, let's say we wanted to add one more node over here. And then node 48, let's set that to node 21. Oops. Yeah, so this time we need to go to node 20, delete this 22 because it's actually now interrupted by 21. So point to 21. And 21 should point to 22. And let's go over to the latest nodes. And we don't want that. Okay. Yeah, so we have this. And we can adjust the width and everything. Oh, it's already at 100. Okay. Yeah, so now let me adjust this too, actually. Okay, let's get back to drawing the rest of the map. I'm gonna go through this as quick as possible so we can keep this video shorter. There, 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 there. Okay, this is a little sloppy, I think. Better. For over here, what you might want to do is just, since this is drivable and this is drivable, instead of creating split paths, you might want to put the nodes in the middle and just make this width a lot larger. So like 180 maybe. Let's see how that looks. Okay, that's probably too big. What about 140? 140 is good. Yeah, so we'll just place them along this edge. Okay, and we want to get back down to 80. Now we're at another split path, so want this to be like 20 or maybe 30 or 40. 40 is a little tight, but I guess it's okay. We have that. Actually, let me do 30. Set this to 30. Let's continue on that. And create another path over here. Yep. And then fix this. And I believe this node should be the one that's to be fixed. Yep. And that should be it. So now we place down our node over here. We want this to be a lot wider, like 60. 100. How about that? Okay, and gotta make sure that all of these point to it. Yep. And then now we place down. Okay, we have another split path over here. It's a crazy map. Let me make the default 80. Actually 70. Okay. So we do that. And then we have our other path. Okay, and this one, delete that. Over here, fix this, and then add our node over here. Home stretch. $100 nodes. That's a lot. Okay, now we point this to stage 0, the start line, and let's make sure we don't forget to set the key checkpoints. So let's make this one key checkpoint, because we know that we're going to pass through this area. Yeah, actually I'll make this the key checkpoint, and I'm going to make this a lot bigger. Let's make this like 300. So this way, there is no way you're not gonna hit this checkpoint unless you're crazy. Move it over here. Yeah, so this way you're always gonna hit this key checkpoint, because over here is out of bounds. Let's go set our key checkpoint too. Wait, let me first see. Okay, it did say that. Good. Stage 2 can be somewhere over here, I think. Oh, this bridge is a perfect spot. Yeah, these kinds of choke points are going to be great for key checkpoints, I found. Because there's no way to get across this without going through the bridge. If you do happen to glitch it, you glitched it, so it's your fault, not my fault. Perfect. And that's it for the nodes. You can see how crazy this all looks. And people were wondering why I was making a big fuss about these track nodes. But now that we have the plugin, this took, what would have taken an hour took like 20 minutes. Alright, let's go next. Place the cart spawns. So this is going to be all 12 spawn locations for the carts. And we want to put it right at the start. So the first click is going to define the start, or the point. First click is going to be closest to the start line, and then we're going to make our second click away from the start line, going backwards. Let's make sure it's straight. Let me click to solidify, and that's literally it for this one. And then at last, we're going to create some camera paths. So these are our cutscenes. So first we create a new cutscene path, and let's say we want a cutscene to be over here. So we click on our cutscene path to edit it, and we might want to show the Explorer for this one. Just quickly close these up. Okay, so take a picture. Let's see. I want to see the file. Cutscenes. So when we click take a picture, it created one point for this camera position. And we could have as many as we want per cutscene path, but generally you want to have like 3 or 4. Let's do 2. And let's do 3. Okay, so that's 3. And for this step, you can delete these and replace them. So if I delete this one, then suddenly the plugin recognizes that I'm missing point 2. So it's going to ask me to retake point 2. So we do that, and then it refills it. So now we exit, I create a new one. Let's do one over here. I like this spot. I'm gonna go along the river maybe. Okay. And I think we might have 4 cutscene paths in total. So let me make one over here. All right. And then the last one is always going to be the one at this start line. So it's going to be like zooming out from the finish line. 1, 2. Easy. You can see all of our files here. And this is literally it. So we can exit out of this plugin at any point and resume the config process. For the import process, you cannot exit out. Or I mean, you can exit out, but then it resets your progress. For this one, you can exit out and come back at any time. You can click finish here and then still return to it and edit any of the stuff that we made. But before I click finish, I'm going to quickly transfer over some stuff from this file. So we already transferred props. We don't want that because I didn't finish that for this other file. But I did take a lot of care in placing the item boxes and the coins for this other one. So I'm gonna transfer that over. So we can go see that now. You see I put 2 over here. Nice row over here. These ones. We've got some over here. 2 on the bridge. These over here. Yeah. I might want to put 1 over here actually, as like just a final hurrah before the race potentially ends. Okay. Let's check out our coins as well, because why not? I might need to place more coins, I'm not sure. But this is something you can always come back to and change later, which is what's so awesome about this. Yeah, I probably do need to place more coins. Anyways, that is it. We are done with this. So I'm going to make some slight fixes to the plugin, but everything I showed is exactly as it should be. And now we have our entire map file. And this is what you put into the game. And everything, all the information that the game needs to run is in this, which is great. And so we might do some things later on, like moving platforms or underwater regions or whatever. But the core foundation is going to be this plugin. Everything will happen through the plugin. So this is all you need to know for using the plugin. Thanks for watching.